As the legendary Mike Tyson, the former heavyweight champion of the world, drives through a small, unassuming town, the evening feels calm, almost serene. He pulls his sleek black SUV into the parking lot of a local diner, his mind set on grabbing a quick meal. Clad in a simple hoodie and jeans, Tyson steps out of his car, exuding a quiet confidence. He's not just a boxing icon. He's a man trying to enjoy a peaceful moment. But peace isn't on the menu tonight. A rowdy group of bikers, their motorcycles dominating the parking lot like sentinels of chaos, take immediate notice. Their leader, Clint, a burly man in his late 40s with a sneer permanently etched on his face, nudges one of his crew and mutters loud enough for everyone to hear. What's he doing here? Doesn't look like he belongs. The bikers exchange knowing smirks, their laughs sharp and filled with malice. They've spotted their target. What they don't know is that they've just picked the wrong man to mess with. The world's toughest boxer. The camera pans across the dimly lit parking lot of the diner, where the hum of the motorcycles and the bikers' boisterous laughter pierce the quiet night. Unbeknownst to them, a storm is brewing, and it's about to hit harder than anything they've ever faced. The scene unfolds as the camera lingers on the gang of bikers, a tight-knit group of men whose loud voices and crude jokes dominate the atmosphere. Clint, the leader, leans back against his bike, a weathered Harley-Davidson, and takes a long swig from his beer bottle. Around him, his crew exchanges mocking comments about anyone who dares cross their path. They're used to being the kings of this small-town diner. No one challenges their authority. As they continue their antics, a black SUV rolls into the parking lot, its polished exterior catching the faint glow of the diner's neon lights. Mike Tyson, 58 years old but still exuding an intimidating aura, steps out. Though he's dressed casually, his presence demands attention. However, it isn't the kind of attention he seeks. Clint notices Mike almost immediately. His eyes narrow, and a sly grin creeps across his face. "Well, look at this guy," he mutters, loud enough for his crew to hear. "Think he's too good for a bike?" The bikers erupt in laughter, their jeers growing louder as Mike walks toward the diner's entrance. His stride is steady, confident, but also calm, like a man who's seen far worse than this. Yet, Clint and his gang mistake this quiet demeanor for weakness. To them, Mike is just another outsider who stumbled into their territory, oblivious to the storm he's about to bring. Despite being one of the most recognizable figures in the world of sports, Mike Tyson is dressed humbly tonight. A simple hoodie, a pair of well-worn jeans, and sneakers are all he wears. There's nothing flashy about his appearance. He's here for one reason: to visit an old friend and enjoy a quiet meal at this modest diner. As he steps out of his black SUV, the soft crunch of gravel underfoot draws the attention of a few bystanders nearby. His sheer physical presence, even at 58 years old, is impossible to ignore. Broad shoulders, a steady gait, and the unmistakable confidence of a man who's faced giants in the ring. All of it paints a picture of quiet power. However, Clint and his gang are too absorbed in their arrogance to recognize him for who he is. To them, Mike is just an outsider, someone they can intimidate for their own amusement. They see his calm demeanor as weakness, utterly oblivious to the fact that they're dealing with a man whose explosive power and lightning-fast reflexes have cemented his place in history. The camera shifts back to the gang, their laughter echoing through the parking lot. They continue to jeer, completely unaware of the storm that's about to descend on their little corner of the world. As Tyson makes his way toward the diner entrance, Clint's eyes lock onto him. A smirk spreads across his face, his gaze dripping with derision. Raising an eyebrow, he calls out, his tone mocking and sharp. "Well, look at this guy," Clint sneers, gesturing lazily toward Tyson. "Thinks he's too good for a bike, huh?" His words, laced with mockery and condescension, hang in the air, drawing snickers and chuckles from his gang. To Clint, this is just another moment to assert his dominance, another outsider to humiliate. Little does he know, he's just invited disaster to his doorstep. Clint's taunt is a thinly veiled attempt to draw Tyson into a confrontation. The gang members chuckle and jeer in agreement, their bodies tensing like coiled springs, ready to pounce if Tyson gives them the slightest reason. Their bravado fills the air, thick with anticipation. But Mike Tyson remains calm and collected. His resolve is unshaken by Clint's taunts, his demeanor unflappable. Without so much as a glance in their direction, he walks past them, his stride confident and measured. It's a move of pure dominance, one that doesn't require words. The gang's laughter falters, dying on their lips as they watch him head toward the diner. Their collective anger grows with each step Tyson takes, their authority seemingly ignored by this calm, towering figure. Clint narrows his eyes, his fists clenching involuntarily as the frustration builds. He's not used to being disregarded, and this stranger's defiance feels like a challenge. Little does he know, it's one he will soon regret. As Tyson reaches the diner's door, the gang shares silent, venomous glances with one another. Without exchanging a single word, their anger boils over, and an unspoken agreement forms. This stranger must be taught a lesson. Their patience is wearing thin, but they remain oblivious to the danger they're about to unleash. Once inside the diner, Tyson maintains his low profile. He approaches the counter, calmly orders a burger, and chooses a booth near the window. From his seat, he has a clear view of the parking lot. The gang, still loitering outside, exudes false bravado. Despite being ignored by Tyson, they refuse to admit defeat, their pride pushing them toward a dangerous escalation. As the gang surveys the parking lot, their bravado barely masking their simmering anger, their eyes lock onto Tyson's black SUV. Parked confidently near their prized motorcycles, it stands out, a symbol of quiet dominance that only fuels their resentment. A malicious glint flashes in Griff's eyes, his mind swirling with thoughts of chaos and petty retribution. His face twists into a sneer as he turns to his crew, his voice loud and dripping with contempt. "Who does he think he is, parking that fancy car next to our bikes?" he snarls, pointing toward Tyson's SUV. His words, laced with jealousy and indignation, stir the gang. One by one, they nod in agreement, their collective anger morphing into a shared desire for payback. Griff's disdain spreads through the group like wildfire, and they begin to form a plan, one born of arrogance and completely blind to the storm they're inviting upon themselves. The gang's collective anger solidifies into a single, hostile force, their resentment bubbling over. Griff's voice rings out, dripping with venom. "We can't have some hotshot rolling into our town and acting like he owns the place." His words pour fuel on the simmering rage within the group, igniting it into a wildfire of malicious intent. At that moment, Snake, a wiry man with slicked back hair and a sinister grin, rises to his feet. The light from the diner reflects off his greasy locks as he sneers, echoing Griff's sentiment. "Let's teach him some respect," he snarls, cracking his knuckles with a sickening pop. His tone is raw, visceral, a promise of violence that cuts through the humid night air. Without hesitation, Snake begins moving toward the diner door, his swagger deliberate and menacing. Behind him, the gang members stir with newfound purpose, their laughter fading into tense silence as they prepare to follow his lead. Their hostility hangs thick in the air like an approaching thunderstorm about to strike. The group's eyes gleam with an unsettling eagerness for violence, their anticipation bordering on fanaticism. Snake, leading the charge, saunters into the diner with an arrogant swagger. His sharp, predatory gaze locks onto Tyson's back as he closes the distance. The room's atmosphere shifts, growing heavy with tension. Reaching Tyson's booth, Snake leans casually against the table, his posture dripping with false confidence. His lips curl into a sinister grin as he addresses Tyson, his voice laced with enough sarcasm to sour milk. "Hey, pal," he sneers, each word oozing contempt. "Nice car you got there, but you might want to move it before it gets damaged." The implied threat hangs in the air, thick and toxic like a mist. Snake's smirk deepens, confident that his gang's presence outside will back up his words. He expects Tyson to flinch, to show fear, but the man in front of him remains composed, his body language calm and unshaken. Snake's confidence is bolstered by the gang waiting just outside, their silent presence reinforcing his ability to carry out the implied threat. He's certain Tyson will back down, just like anyone else would under such pressure. But Snake's smug demeanor falters as Tyson finally turns his attention to him. Slowly, Tyson's gaze hardens, his eyes narrowing as he sizes up the new threat. Calmly, with the quiet authority of a man who's commanded respect his entire life, Tyson replies, his voice low and steady. "I'm just here to eat. Don't start trouble." The warning, clipped and precise, carries a weight that fills the room. It's the kind of tone that leaves no room for negotiation. Beneath Tyson's calm words lies a restrained fury, like a storm waiting to break. Snake, undeterred, leans in closer, the stench of cheap beer rolling off his breath as he tries to intimidate Tyson further. His smirk returns, but this time it's forced, masking the unease creeping into the back of his mind. Snake's arrogance grows, bolstered by the implied threat of his gang lurking just outside. Reacting to Tyson's warning with mocking contempt, he lets out a low chuckle, his malicious smile widening. Leaning in even closer, Snake makes sure the stench of alcohol on his breath hits Tyson's nostrils. With a sudden aggressive motion, Snake slams his hand onto the table, the sound cutting through the low hum of the diner. "Trouble? Who said anything about trouble?" he snarls, his voice a deadly hiss. "I was just making a friendly suggestion." The air inside the diner becomes unbearably heavy. Tension crackles like electricity, and the faint murmur of other diners fades into silence. All eyes are on Tyson and Snake. The looming violence hangs over the room like a thundercloud, ready to erupt at any moment. Tyson, however, doesn't flinch. His calm demeanor remains unshaken, but the steely look in his eyes speaks volumes. Before the tension between Tyson and Snake can explode into violence, a sharp, commanding voice slices through the heavy silence. The unexpected sound halts the escalating confrontation, punctuating the simmering anger in the air. "Hey, leave him alone," the voice rings out, firm and unwavering. The source of the intervention is the diner's waitress, a young woman with a kind yet fiercely protective demeanor. Her sympathetic expression contrasts with the authority in her tone as she steps forward, her hands on her hips. "He's not bothering anyone," she adds, her voice steady and unwavering despite the tension crackling around her. Snake's eyes narrow, darkening with fury as his murderous rage simmers beneath the surface. His expression twists into something almost feral, like a coiled snake ready to strike. For a moment, it seems like he might lash out at the waitress, his body jerking slightly as a low, guttural growl rumbles from his throat. But something in her firm gaze makes him hesitate. The room holds its breath, the storm barely restrained. For a tense moment, it seems as though Snake might unleash his fury on the waitress. His body tenses, his jaw clenches, and the growl deep in his throat grows louder. But then he hesitates. Whether it's the unwavering defiance in her eyes or a fleeting moment of self-control, Snake restrains himself. He shoots her one final withering glare, his eyes burning with barely contained rage. "Mind your own business," he spits, his words dripping with menace. With that, he turns on his heel and stalks away, his shoulders rigid with frustration. Meanwhile, Tyson finishes his meal, rising slowly from the booth with deliberate, methodical movements. Calm and collected, he gathers himself, then starts walking toward the exit. His gaze is steady, fixed on the parking lot outside, where the gang members linger like a wall of menace, their presence thick with silent hostility. The moment Tyson steps out into the open, the gang converges on him. Their movements are swift, their intentions clear. The threat in their eyes leaves no doubt. They're ready for confrontation. The gang's confidence swells, their numbers alone an unspoken threat. The air around them crackles with tension, heavy and electric as they close in on their target. Their eyes glint with predatory anticipation, like a pack of wolves circling prey. Tyson's expression, however, remains impassive. His body language shifts subtly, his stance becoming guarded, ready, defensive. He doesn't speak, his silence radiating an unnerving calm that only heightens the unease in the air. Griff, flanked by his gang, steps forward with a self-satisfied smirk stretching across his face. His voice is smooth and sinister, dripping with false charm as he breaks the silence. "Leaving so soon?" he taunts, his tone mocking, laced with venom. "We thought you might want to hang out with us for a while. You look like a guy who knows how to have a good time." The dark glint in Griff's eyes betrays his true intent. His words are anything but an invitation. They're a provocation, a deliberate challenge. Griff's words, despite their mocking charm, betray his true intent. The dark glint in his eyes makes it clear that having a good time is the last thing on his mind. His expression hardens, and the gang's energy intensifies as they inch closer, their presence pressing in like a tightening noose. Mike comes to a controlled halt, his movements smooth and deliberate. Calmly, he slips his hands into his pockets, his posture radiating a deceptive nonchalance. Yet his piercing gaze, locked on Griff, speaks volumes. It's the look of a man who's ready, but unwilling to act unless provoked. In a voice as steady and low as a distant rumble of thunder, Tyson speaks. "I don't want any problems," he says, each word measured. "Just let me go, and we can forget this ever happened." His tone isn't a plea, it's a warning, firm and resolute. The gang senses it too. Tyson's unwavering determination creates an undercurrent of doubt among them. But Griff doesn't flinch. Instead, he takes a step forward, the tension reaching a breaking point. The gang exchanges uncertain glances, their collective confidence momentarily shaken by Tyson's calm defiance. For a brief moment, the dynamic shifts as doubt creeps in, but Griff, standing firm at the center, quickly reasserts his control. Bolstered by their leader's unwavering bravado, the gang erupts into mocking laughter. The sound is sharp, cruel, and infectious, spreading through the group like a deadly contagion. It grows louder and louder, threatening to drown out all other noise as if to mask their underlying unease. Griff, emboldened by the gang's jeering support, steps closer to Tyson, his face inches away. With a sneer twisting his lips, he jabs a finger hard into Tyson's chest, his breath hot and heavy against Tyson's skin. "You're going to regret coming here," Griff hisses, his voice low and dripping with menace. The gang watches intently, their predatory gazes locked onto the confrontation. The tension in the air tightens, the moment teetering on the edge of violence. "To teach you a lesson about respecting the iron wolves," Griff growls, his tone full of venom as he leans closer to Tyson. But Tyson remains stoic, utterly unfazed by Griff's aggressive stance. His expression doesn't waver, his body language projecting quiet defiance. It's as though every fiber of his being is daring them to make the first move. Griff, enraged by what he perceives as blatant disrespect, raises his arm sharply, gesturing to his crew with a curt nod. The silent command ripples through the gang like a spark igniting dry kindling. Their excitement surges as they close in around Tyson, their movements tense and predatory, like a pack of wolves tightening the circle around their prey. Griff steps back slightly, his voice a low, guttural growl. "Show him what happens when you mess with us," he orders, his words hanging in the air like a death sentence. The gang moves as one, their collective energy taut with anticipation, their fists clenched, ready to pounce. The storm is about to break, and they're too blinded by their arrogance to realize they're up against a force far greater than themselves. Brimming with raw, restrained rage, Tyson finally strikes. His movements explode into action, a blur of expertly executed punches that seem faster than the eye can follow. The gang members, caught completely off guard by the sudden ferocity, barely have time to react before Tyson's fists connect with brutal precision. Each punch lands with devastating force, the impact echoing through the parking lot like thunder. The sickening crunch of bones and cartilage shatters the night's silence, creating a chilling soundtrack to the unfolding chaos. Within mere seconds, 2 gang members crumple to the ground, unconscious and bleeding. Their bodies lie contorted at unnatural angles, their faces swollen and battered from Tyson's blows. The speed and ferocity of his attack, leave the remaining gang members frozen in shock, their bravado cracking under the weight of fear as they realize just how outmatched they are. The parking lot feels like a war zone, and the legendary fighter, standing tall and unshaken, exudes a presence that leaves no room for doubt. This is a man they never should have crossed. The remaining gang members stare in disbelief at the crumpled, broken forms of their comrades lying on the asphalt. Their mouths hang open, shock written across their faces. For a fleeting moment, silence blankets the scene, the weight of Tyson's raw power sinking in. But the quiet doesn't last. Rage surges through their veins, pushing aside any lingering fear or hesitation. Their pride won't allow them to back down. Not after this. Griff, his eyes blazing with hatred, clenches his fists before reaching behind him. With a swift, deliberate motion, he pulls a heavy chain from his back pocket. The metallic links glint menacingly in the fading sunlight, like a serpent coiled and ready to strike. Emboldened by Griff's lead, another gang member steps forward, brandishing a baseball bat. The weapon is held high, his knuckles white from the pressure of his grip. The air grows thick with menace, and the gang rallies together, their fury building as they prepare for another assault. Tyson, standing firm amidst the tension, watches them calmly, his eyes scanning each movement with the precision of a predator ready to counter any threat. As the gang encircles Tyson, their movements deliberate and calculated, they close in like a tightening noose. The tension is palpable, each step narrowing the space around him. Griff's lips curl into a cruel smile, the heavy chain dangling from his fist like a venomous serpent ready to strike. "Big mistake, tough guy," Griff snarls, his tone dripping with contempt. His voice rings out, cold and sharp, slicing through the silence. The weight of his words underscores the gravity of the situation, and for a moment, even the gang seems to pause, their collective rage heightening the air's oppressive stillness. But Tyson, standing at the center of it all, remains calm. This isn't unfamiliar territory. This is his element. Slowly, he raises his hands and cracks his knuckles, the sharp sound echoing like a warning shot. The subtle movement speaks louder than any words ever could, a stark declaration of the destruction he's capable of unleashing. The gang shifts uneasily, but Griff holds his ground, his cruel smile unwavering. The situation teeters on the edge, poised to erupt into chaos. Tyson's demeanor shifts. The calm, composed exterior gives way to a steely intensity, his eyes narrowing with the predatory focus of a fighter ready to unleash hell upon his enemies. His body seems to hum with energy, the quiet before the storm. "You really don't want to do this," he warns, his voice low and dangerous. Each syllable is deliberate, laced with a simmering rage barely held in check. It's not just a warning, it's a chance for them to turn back, to avoid the pain and humiliation that's about to follow. But Tyson's words fall on deaf ears. The gang, their thirst for revenge clouding their judgment, chooses violence over reason. Their howls of fury pierce the air as they charge toward Tyson in a frenzied assault of punches, kicks, and swinging weapons. The storm breaks, chaos erupting in the parking lot as they descend upon him, blind to the fact that they've just unleashed a force far beyond anything they can handle. The gang's chains and fists swing wildly, their attacks chaotic and uncoordinated. But Tyson, like a force of nature unleashed, becomes a blur of motion. He weaves and ducks effortlessly, slipping through their strikes with the precision of a predator. Then he counters. His punches and kicks land with earth-shattering force, each one a devastating blow. The carnage that follows is a symphony of violence. The sound of flesh colliding with flesh echoes through the parking lot, punctuated by grunts of pain and gasps of shock. It's a visceral, almost otherworldly scene, as though demons have been unleashed from the depths of hell. The camera slows, capturing Tyson in exquisite detail. His movements are graceful and precise, a masterclass in raw power and unmatched technique. Every punch he throws is a calculated masterpiece, his years of training and natural instinct combining in a perfect storm. The gang reels under his relentless assault, their confidence crumbling as they realize they've awakened a living legend. Every step Tyson takes is like a ballet of destruction, his movements fluid and precise, yet devastatingly powerful. He weaves through the chaos with predatory grace, his reactions lightning fast as he parries incoming attacks with ease. Each counterstrike he delivers lands with brutal efficiency, sending his opponents reeling. The ferocity of the battle is rivaled only by Tyson's control and poise, a testament to years of training and a storied career in the ring. His precision is almost surgical, every punch and kick designed to incapacitate without wasting an ounce of energy. Griff, his face now a mask of rage and bruises, staggers backward, struggling to withstand the onslaught. Blood trickles from a cut above his eye, his breath coming in ragged gasps. His wild, feral eyes dart frantically from side to side, searching for an opening or a way to regain control of the fight. But Tyson is relentless, his focus unbroken, and Griff knows deep down that he's no match for the legendary boxer. The gang exchanges uncertain glances, their collective confidence momentarily shaken by Tyson's calm defiance. For a brief moment, the dynamic shifts as doubt creeps in, but Griff, standing firm at the center, quickly reasserts his control. Bolstered by their leader's unwavering bravado, the gang erupts into mocking laughter. The sound is sharp, cruel, and infectious, spreading through the group like a deadly contagion. It grows louder and louder, threatening to drown out all other noise as if to mask their underlying unease. Griff, emboldened by the gang's jeering support, steps closer to Tyson, his face inches away. With a sneer twisting his lips, he jabs a finger hard into Tyson's chest, his breath hot and heavy against Tyson's skin. "You're going to regret coming here," Griff hisses, his voice low and dripping with menace. The gang watches intently, their predatory gazes locked onto the confrontation. The tension in the air tightens, the moment teetering on the edge of violence. "To teach you a lesson about respecting the iron wolves," Griff growls, his tone full of venom as he leans closer to Tyson. But Tyson remains stoic, utterly unfazed by Griff's aggressive stance. His expression doesn't waver, his body language projecting quiet defiance. It's as though every fiber of his being is daring them to make the first move. Griff, enraged by what he perceives as blatant disrespect, raises his arm sharply, gesturing to his crew with a curt nod. The silent command ripples through the gang like a spark igniting dry kindling. Their excitement surges as they close in around Tyson, their movements tense and predatory, like a pack of wolves tightening the circle around their prey. Griff steps back slightly, his voice a low, guttural growl. "Show him what happens when you mess with us," he orders, his words hanging in the air like a death sentence. The gang moves as one, their collective energy taut with anticipation, their fists clenched, ready to pounce. The storm is about to break, and they're too blinded by their arrogance to realize they're up against a force far greater than themselves. Brimming with raw, restrained rage, Tyson finally strikes. His movements explode into action, a blur of expertly executed punches that seem faster than the eye can follow. The gang members, caught completely off guard by the sudden ferocity, barely have time to react before Tyson's fists connect with brutal precision. Each punch lands with devastating force, the impact echoing through the parking lot like thunder. The sickening crunch of bones and cartilage shatters the night's silence, creating a chilling soundtrack to the unfolding chaos. Within mere seconds, 2 gang members crumple to the ground, unconscious and bleeding. Their bodies lie contorted at unnatural angles, their faces swollen and battered from Tyson's blows. The speed and ferocity of his attack leave the remaining gang members frozen in shock, their bravado cracking under the weight of fear as they realize just how outmatched they are. The parking lot feels like a war zone, and the legendary fighter, standing tall and unshaken, exudes a presence that leaves no room for doubt. This is a man they never should have crossed. The remaining gang members stare in disbelief at the crumpled, broken forms of their comrades lying on the asphalt. Their mouths hang open, shock written across their faces. For a fleeting moment, silence blankets the scene, the weight of Tyson's raw power sinking in. But the quiet doesn't last. Rage surges through their veins, pushing aside any lingering fear or hesitation. Their pride won't allow them to back down. Not after this. Griff, his eyes blazing with hatred, clenches his fists before reaching behind him. With a swift, deliberate motion, he pulls a heavy chain from his back pocket. The metallic links glint menacingly in the fading sunlight, like a serpent coiled and ready to strike. Emboldened by Griff's lead, another gang member steps forward, brandishing a baseball bat. The weapon is held high, his knuckles white from the pressure of his grip. The air grows thick with menace, and the gang rallies together, their fury building as they prepare for another assault. Tyson, standing firm amidst the tension, watches them calmly, his eyes scanning each movement with the precision of a predator ready to counter any threat. Griff's breath comes in ragged gasps, his chest heaving as desperation takes hold. In a last-ditch effort to turn the tide, he reaches into his pocket and pulls out a switchblade. With a sharp snap, the blade flicks open, its edge glinting menacingly in the fading light. The weapon is a deadly promise, trembling slightly in Griff's hand. "Let's see how tough you are now," Griff bellows, his voice choked with anger and desperation. The gang leader's bravado is fading, replaced by the reckless fury of a man who knows he's losing. Tyson hears the challenge, and a steely glint flashes in his eyes. His calm demeanor shifts, his expression hardening into a mask of pure determination. Without a word, he begins advancing toward Griff, his movements deliberate and unstoppable. The gang falls silent, their confidence faltering as they watch the living legend approach their leader with unshakable resolve. The tension thickens, the moment poised on the edge of chaos as Tyson closes the distance. Tyson's steps are measured and calculated, each one deliberate, his movements that of a predator closing in on its prey. His gaze locks onto Griff, unblinking and razor-sharp. "You're about to find out," Tyson growls, his voice low and menacing. The weight of those words carries the undeniable promise of impending doom. Griff, emboldened by desperation and blinded by fury, lunges forward with the knife, the blade gleaming ominously in the dim light. His attack is wild and reckless, a last-ditch effort to regain control. But Tyson reacts with breathtaking precision. In a blur of motion, he sidesteps the attack, his movements fluid and effortless. Before Griff can recover, Tyson seizes his arm and twists it sharply, forcing the knife from Griff's grasp. The weapon clatters to the ground with a metallic thud, useless. The contrast between the two men is stark. Tyson's brutal efficiency against Griff's reckless fury. With one swift motion, Tyson pins Griff, overpowering him with ease. Griff struggles, but Tyson's grip is unyielding, a display of dominance that leaves no room for doubt about the outcome of this confrontation. Tyson drives Griff to the ground with decisive force, pinning the gang leader beneath him. His knee presses firmly into Griff's chest, rendering him powerless. The tables have turned. The predator has become the prey. Griff's desperate thrashing is futile against Tyson's iron grip, his face contorted in pain and humiliation. Tyson's voice, cold and authoritative, cuts through the still night, echoing across the parking lot. "You don't mess with people for no reason," he says, his eyes narrowing into flinty slits, radiating an unyielding resolve. In the aftermath of the brutal exchange, the once fierce gang members are reduced to defeated, scattered forms across the parking lot. They lie sprawled like broken toys, their battered bodies a testament to the raw power and skill of Mike Tyson. The chaos they instigated has come to an abrupt and humbling end. Inside the diner, onlookers gather at the windows, their faces pressed against the glass. As the dust settles, their silence is broken by an eruption of cheers and applause. The sound reverberates through the diner, a collective expression of awe and gratitude for the man who restored order with his fists and unshakable spirit. The cheers from the onlookers grow louder, their admiration and gratitude for the legendary fighter filling the air. Tyson, his fists still clenched, surveys the scene with a measured gaze. The adrenaline coursing through his veins begins to fade, replaced by a calm intensity. With a slow, deliberate movement, Tyson dusts himself off, his composure unshaken. His attention shifts to the battered men lying sprawled on the asphalt, their groans of pain the only sounds breaking the silence. The once menacing gang is now reduced to a pitiful sight, a stark reminder of the power they had underestimated. As the chaos begins to subside, the distant wail of a siren pierces the night. The high-pitched cry grows louder, heralding the arrival of the local sheriff. Moments later, the lawman's cruiser pulls into the parking lot, its red and blue lights casting sharp flashes across the scene. The sheriff steps out, taking in the aftermath with a seasoned eye, his expression unreadable as he surveys the scattered gang and the unshaken figure of Tyson standing amidst the wreckage. The sheriff's cruiser screeches to a halt, its headlights casting stark beams across the carnage of the skirmish. The battered gang members lie scattered across the asphalt, groaning in pain, while Tyson stands tall and composed in the middle of the scene. Climbing out of his vehicle, the sheriff surveys the aftermath with a seasoned eye. His gaze moves from the beaten gang members to the triumphant figure of Tyson, taking in every detail. A knowing grin spreads across the lawman's face as he strides toward the legendary boxer, chuckling softly under his breath. Tyson, still drenched in the thrill of victory, notices the sheriff's grin and responds with a smile of his own. It's a rare moment of levity that softens his hardened features, making him look almost boyish, even playful. "Just teaching them a little manners," Tyson quips, his voice calm but edged with dry humor. The sheriff nods knowingly, the mutual respect between two men who've seen their share of chaos evident in the brief exchange. "Manners," Tyson repeats with a faint smirk, his dry wit adding a touch of levity to the tense aftermath. The sheriff chuckles and the two men shake hands, a gesture of mutual respect between seasoned warriors who have seen humanity at its worst and stood firm in the face of chaos. Meanwhile, the sheriff's deputies move in, hauling the battered and bloodied gang members to their feet. Their groans and weak protests fill the air, but they fall on deaf ears as the officers work methodically to restrain them. Handcuffs snap shut around their wrists one by one, the cold metal a sharp contrast to the fiery arrogance they had moments ago. The gang members are herded into the back of the police cruiser, their cries of outrage growing fainter as the heavy doors slam shut. The last remnants of their defiance are drowned out by the silence of defeat. Moments later, the cruiser speeds off into the night, its sirens wailing in the distance, signaling the end of their reign of intimidation. As the police cruiser speeds off into the night, its siren fading into the distance, the town seems to collectively exhale, a long-held breath finally released. The reign of terror imposed by the Iron Wolves is over, their menace shattered by the indomitable spirit and righteous fists of Mike Tyson. With the danger gone, the townspeople step out of the diner and surrounding buildings, their fear replaced with admiration. Tyson heads toward his black SUV, his movements calm and deliberate, but the impact of his actions lingers heavily in the air. The moment Tyson climbs into his vehicle, the onlookers erupt into spontaneous applause. A chorus of cheers and claps fills the parking lot, a heartfelt ovation for the hero who, in a single act of selfless bravery, restored order and justice to their quiet town. As Tyson starts the engine, the resounding cheers follow him. His tires screech against the asphalt as he pulls out of the parking lot, leaving behind a scene of destruction, but also one of renewed hope. The tires screech against the asphalt as Tyson drives off into the night, the dark highway stretching endlessly before him. The adrenaline begins to subside, but his mind races, replaying the recent events like a film reel in his head. In his mind's eye, he sees himself standing amidst the chaos, a lone figure, unwavering, standing tall against a tide of violence and hatred. Each punch, every calculated move, replays vividly, a testament to the years of discipline and training that shaped him into the man he is today. As the memories flicker through his consciousness, Tyson's voice breaks the silence in his SUV. He murmurs softly, his tone low and contemplative, as if speaking to no one but himself. His words are the culmination of years of experience, and the wisdom gained from countless battles, both in the ring and out. "You fight when you have to," he says quietly, his eyes fixed on the road ahead, "but only for the right reasons." The highway stretches on, endless and quiet, as Tyson continues his journey, one of reflection, resilience, and the unshakable spirit of a fighter. Tyson's words linger in the air, a truth forged in the fires of his legendary career. Each battle he fought, both in the ring and in life, shaped his understanding of strength, discipline, and purpose. The road ahead is dark and empty, but Tyson's gaze remains steady, his thoughts a blend of reflection and determination. For him, this moment wasn't just about defending himself. It was about standing up for what's right, for the people who couldn't fight back. It's a truth he's carried with him through the highs and lows, a legacy not just of power, but of principle.